हॅलो जाधव सर. हा एक मिनिट सर फक्त एक मिनिट.
निकिता, hello, Nikita, are you there? Hello, where are others? Call them. हॅलो निकिता. आर यू देअर निकिता? निकिता. हॅलो. हॅलो निकिता. आर यू देअर? हॅलो.
यस सर.
हा. अरे पटापटा जॉईन व्हा की रे, काय किती वेळ लावताय? निकिता कुठे गेली होतीस?
तर मी किती उशीर झाला आतमध्येच आहे.
हा.
मी भरपूर उशीर झाला जॉईन झाले. मी 11:25 ला जॉईन झाले.
हो, पण मी कॉल करतोय मगापासून तर तुझा रिस्पॉन्सच नाही.
मे बी सर आवाज येत नव्हता मला.
हो का?
हा, मी
बर
जॉईन उशीर झाली.
बर बर. स्वप्नील, अरे बाकीचे कुठे आहेत?
तर सांगितलंय सगळ्यांना, मेसेज टाकला ग्रुपवर.
हम्म. तू 1-2 मिनिटं वाट बघून करू सुरू. तुमचं 3:30ला पेपर आहे ना रे? कितीला आहे?
झाले सर पेपर आज. कालच झाले.
संपले ना?
हा, काल संपले.
स्क्रीन दिसते का?
हो सर.
Well, we are dealing with the brackish water habitat, and in last lecture we have studied what is meant by brackish water, the definition, characteristics of estuary, and also we have discussed on the physical parameters, properties of estuaries in which tide, waves and currents. These are the three physical properties that we have discussed. And now we are switching towards next part of it, that is chemical properties. Now, chemical properties. As a marine habitat, salinity is also one of the chemical properties as far as the estuaries are concerned. Now, salinity is a total concentration of different salts present in the water. Due to continuous addition of the salts by river water, salinity of marine water is much increased. See, because of the salts, addition of the salts by river water, the salinity is increased. The salinity of brackish water always change according to the tide. Very important point to be noted here. It changes according to the tide. The salinity of brackish water is increasing during high tide and when marine water enters. Naturally, when marine water enters from the sea into the estuary, while it is low when at the low tide, when the water flows back into the sea. And so because of this high tide and low tide, the salinity of the brackish water, salinity of the estuarine water often changes. Depending on the salinity, estuaries are of two types. Now, what are these two types? One is the positive or hyposaline estuaries. The name itself indicates the meaning of it. The second one is negative or hypersaline estuaries. So, first of all, positive estuaries. It is present at the mouth of larger rivers, mostly east coast of India, east coast, पूर्वेच्या किनारपट्टीला. In larger rivers, the discharge of water is maximum. so that marine water present in the estuary gets more diluted, the salinity is much reduced because the mouth of the river is much more wider and much more flow of the water is there because these larger rivers they meet the sea. In this type, the estuary, in this type of estuary, there is stratification or formation of the layers in the sea water, and as organic material is present in more abundant at the bottom, hence oxygen concentration is very less. Such estuaries are called hyposaline estuaries. Stratification. The stratification is because of the salinity, because of the density, because salinity is directly proportional to the density of the water. So stratification or formation of the layer is in seawater, and the organic material is present in more amount at the bottom, hence oxygen concentration is very less. Such estuaries are called as positive or hyposaline estuaries. The next type is negative or hypersaline estuaries. Now it is present at the mouth region of the smaller, difference is there, larger and smaller rivers. Again, at the west and the east coast, these are present at the west coast, their hypo is present at the east coast. In smaller river, discharge of water by river is less and amount of marine water from sea is more. The rate of evaporation of the water from estuary is more than the fresh water entering through the river. So the salinity of the brackish water is more. So the word hypersaline is used here. In negative estuaries, there is no stratification. So the sea water and the organic material are less in amount at the bottom, its oxygen concentration of the estuarine water is more. Hence, or such estuaries are called as negative or hypersaline estuaries. Now, this is the chart which comparatively you will find river, head of the river, upper reach, middle reach, lower reach, and the mouth. The position, how the position differs. Accordingly, the salinity also differs. So, the limnatic zones, they are in this way: oligohaline, mesohaline, polyhaline, and euryhaline. According to the basis of the salinity, different zonations are there in the different regions of the river. Okay. Then next is the dissolved oxygen and carbon dioxide concentration in the estuarine waters or in the brackish water. Both dissolved oxygen and carbon dioxide has inverse relationship with each other. Now see, if dissolved oxygen is present in more amount, free CO2 is less in the brackish water. And if O2 is less, free CO2 is more in. So this concentration of O2 to CO2, it is inversely proportional. The amount of dissolved oxygen depends upon salinity and the temperature of the water. As we have seen in the previous earlier uh, property, that is salinity. Amount of dissolved oxygen depends on the salinity and the temperature of the water. If the salinity is more, O2 concentration is more, and if salinity is less, O2 concentration is also less. Notice this O2 concentration is different in different zones of the estuaries, as we have studied, we have seen. Usually in unpolluted estuary, organic material are present in more amount at the bottom, due to which O2 or dissolved oxygen is mainly used for decaying of the organic material, and O2 is less in amount. See, ऑर्गॅनिक मटेरियल जास्त असेल तर ते बॉटमला असतं, आणि बॉटमला असल्यामुळे that is used, oxygen is used for decaying of the organic matter, so less amount of O2 is available, so that CO2 concentration is more in brackish water. The O2 concentration also depends on the flora of estuary. Naturally, flora of estuary, especially Zostria is the common aquatic plant present in the estuary. If the population of Zostria is more at the particular place in the estuary during daytime, the part of the estuary becomes more saturated with dissolved oxygen because of the photosynthetic activity. While during at night, as the photosynthetic activity is absent, O2 is used for the respiration. By this Zostria plants, hence CO2 concentration is increased, much increased, and O2 concentration is. So this is the difference in the concentration of CO2 and O2 as far as the photosynthetic activity is concerned, as well as the day and night, or availability of the sunlight is concerned during day and during night. Next is the pH of the brackish water. Depends on, as usual, this pH depends on carbonates, bicarbonates, and hydroxides present in the water. Due to bicarbonates, pH is reduced and becomes acidic. As you know, when we say the pH value is less, the water body is acidic. Due to the bicarbonates, pH becomes neutral, and due to hydroxides, OH especially, hydroxides, pH is increased and water becomes alkaline. It is carbonates, bicarbonates, and hydroxides, and their concentration in the water decides the nature of the pH, whether it is acidic, neutral, or alkaline. pH of water decreases and water becomes acidic, and pH of estuarine water is mostly, it ranges between 6.5 to 9.2. So this is the range for the range of pH for the brackish water or estuarine water. Next is the sulfur content of the brackish water. Large amount of sulfur, mostly in the form of sulfides. Okay. The bacteria called, क्वेश्चन MCQ चा प्रश्न आहे, the bacteria called Supheriborostral acts as hydrogen acceptor. It converts the sulfur into hydrogen sulfide, that is H2S. And this gas is circulated between mud and converts ferric salts into ferrous sulfides. Okay. Thus the soil in the estuaries becomes blackish in color. Most of the time, जिथं आपण बघा जर अनुभव घेतला असेल तुम्ही, समुद्राला जिथं नदी मिळते आणि तिथलं वाळूचं जे नेचर आहे ते तुम्हाला अगदी बीचला असणारी वाळू आणि इश्चुरीमध्ये असलेली वाळू याच्यात तुम्हाला तफावत दिसते, फरक दिसतो. बीचची वाळू सिल्वर अशी गोल्डन कलरची दिसते, पिवळसर दिसते, आणि ही ब्लॅकिश दिसते बिकॉज ऑफ द प्रेझेन्स ऑफ दिस hydrogen sulfide, which turns the soil or in the estuary blackish in color because it is mixed soil which contains sand as well as the silt coming from the water of the river, coming from the river. So this is the reaction which in this process formaldehyde and free sulfur is formed, which is again used. The sulfur cycle is complete. So whatever free sulfur which is released, that free sulfur is again utilized by this bacteria, and then the sulfur cycle is completed. Phosphate contents, sulfates, phosphates, nitrates. These are the very important nutrients in the form material in organic elements, you can say, which are very much essential. Now, the phosphate in the brackish water, it exists in three states. Some of the phosphate are present in the gaps between two neighboring sand and mud particles. म्हणजे फ्री असलेले हे फॉस्फेट वाळूच्या आणि मातीच्या कणांमध्ये बाउंड झालेलं असते. ॲब्सॉर्ब फॉस्फेट या स्वरूपामध्ये सुद्धा फॉस्फेट असते. The phosphates are present absorbed over the surface of sand particle. Such adsorbed phosphate, see the words, such adsorbed phosphates are absorbed. Difference is there in the spelling. Meaning is also different. Adsorbed and absorbed by the roots of the aquatic plants. So adsorption takes place at the surface of the soil particle, sand particle, and absorption is there, which takes place where the roots of the aquatic plants, they absorb these phosphates. And third form is the dissolved form. In brackish water, some phosphates are present in the dissolved form along with potassium and sodium molecules. So the amount of dissolved phosphates decrease with the decrease in the dissolved oxygen concentration. While if the concentration of dissolved oxygen increases, the phosphate remains bound with sodium and potassium so as to form sodium phosphate and potassium phosphate. But when the dissolved oxygen decreases, phosphate gets separated from potassium and sodium molecules. Thus, you can say that the concentration of dissolved oxygen plays important role in the bonding of the phosphate with the sodium and the phosphate, sodium and the potassium, and thus they are made available for the aquatic plants. Next, calcium content. Now, calcium content, calcium is also present in the estuarial waters in ionic or bond forms. Now, this calcium, see, the number of protozoans called foraminifera and algae. Foraminifera, these are the protozoans with the skeleton, are less in estuarine water. Both foraminifera and algae requires calcium so that they actively absorb the calcium from the brackish water. The foraminiferans requires calcium for formation of calcareous exoskeleton. See, important. Formation of calcareous exoskeleton. Even though they are protozoans, they tend to form the exoskeleton, which is made up of calcium. While algae requires calcium for its metabolic activities. The amount of calcium is more in estuarine waters than the marine water because marine water contains large amount of algae and foraminifera. The amount of calcium also depends on the pH of water. As pH of water decreases, the number of calcium ion increases and vice versa. As pH of water decreases, the number of ions, calcium ions increases. And if pH of water increases, the number of calcium ion decreases. So, certain trace elements, brackish water also contains less amount of trace elements in the form of manganese and cobalt. Excuse me. Hello. हाँ हाँ सर मी जरा लेक्चर मध्ये आहे. थोडा वेळ सुज्ञ सरांकडे आहे सर ते. हा झेरॉक्स आहे मी देतो तुम्हाला आहे माझ्या. देतो. हो चालेल. Trace elements, they are in the form of manganese and cobalt. These elements are present in the amount in μg, micro amount is there, but they are essential. So this is how the one of the point is there in the syllabus, physico-chemical properties of issue. Thus we have ended up with the physical as well as the chemical properties of the issues. Now I will stop sharing this and we will switch on towards the next part, that is types of estuaries. Okay. Can you see the screen? Hello? दिसते ना? Now types of estuaries. These are the different types of estuaries that we are going to discuss. Now, first is the Brown River Valley. See, these are classical estuaries where commonly found along the coastal line. So these are also called as coastal line estuaries. With relatively wide coastal plain, म्हणजे कोस्टल किनारपट्टीचा जो भाग असतो जिथं नदी येऊन मिळते तो वाईड झालेला असतो. Due to the action of river, erosion of the soil near the sea results in the depression, into depression. म्हणजे व्ही आकाराचा शेप खड्डा खाच तिथे पडते आणि so the sea water enters in this valley व्ही आणि इश्युरी तयार झाली असते. म्हणजे हा असा हा त्याचा जरा थोडीशी फेंट जराशी मी वाढवतो. हा हा असा म्हणजे दिसतं, ह्या सेक्शन मध्ये हा असा दिसतोय, ह्या याच्यामध्ये हे असं असं दिसतं. तर बिकॉज ऑफ दिस nature, or this is the type which is called as drawn river valley. Then second one is Jord type of estuary. Now it is formed at the polar regions of the earth. Polar region, North Pole and South Pole. Arctic and Antarctic समुद्र जिथं आहे तिथे. This type of estuary is formed by the action of glaciers. Due to erosion of the glaciers near the sea, U-shaped depression is formed. म्हणजे इथं हे पहा. हे असं U-shaped depression is formed. हे दिसताना हे असं असं दिसतं. हे व्ही आकाराचं, हे यू आकाराचं. There is deposition of ice, mud, and other particles which results in the formation of estuary. This type of estuary is not found in India, but present at the north and south pole of the region. म्हणजे आता हे दुसरा टाइप आहे. तिसरा प्रकार जो आहे बार बिल्ड इस्च्युरी. डिपॉझिशन, सँडचे डिपॉझिशन झालेलं. द रिव्हर वॉटर कॅरीज सँड अँड मर पार्टिकल्स. बघा बारचा अर्थ काय आणि बार इश्यूरी कशाला म्हणायचं. द रिव्हर वॉटर कॅरीज सँड अँड मड पार्टिकल्स ॲट द माउथ region of the river. Speed of the water is much decreased or very slow, so that sand, silt, and other material carried by the river get deposited every year. When this material rises above the sea level, the elevation are formed called pits. Okay. हे असं हे इकडं हे असं क्रॉस सेक्शन मध्ये असं दिसेल, किंवा हे इकडून नदीचा प्रवाह आहे, आलेलं डिपॉझिट झालेलं सँड हळूहळू हळूहळू आतमध्ये त्याचा ढीग तयार होतोय, आणि तो ढीग पाण्याच्या वर आल्यानंतर त्याला स्पीट असा शब्द वापरतो. ओके. हा टॉप प्रोफाईल आहे, हा टॉप व्ह्यू आहे, म्हणजे वरून पाहिले तर असं दिसेल. हा क्रॉस सेक्शनल व्ह्यू त्यांनी. The spits are parallel to the coast, and few gaps are present in between the spits. म्हणजे असं ही जी कोस्ट आहे, या कोस्टला ही स्पीड पॅरल आहे, आणि थोडासा इथं गॅप असा इथं दिसतो. These estuaries remain open during monsoon season. They remain landlocked when there is no water flow. मान्सून पिरियड मध्ये जास्त फ्लो असल्यामुळे कदाचित हे असं पूर्ण हे स्पीड झाकून गेलेलं असतं, पण जेव्हा फ्लो कमी होतो तेव्हा हे स्पीड वर दिसतं, लँडलॉक्ड. म्हणजे सगळ्या बाजूने पाणी आणि असे हे भूप हा असा पाण्यामध्ये अडकलेला आहे असं आपल्याला ते दिसतं. Then estuaries produced by tectonic process. Tectonic process, जमिनीच्या प्लेट्स हलतात, टेक्टॉनिक मुवमेंट. हादऱ्याने, अर्थक्वेकने जमिनीचा काही भाग हलतो, त्याला ती जी मुवमेंट असते त्याला टेक्टॉनिक प्रोसेस असं म्हटलं जातं. समटाइम्स ड्युरिंग अर्थक्वेक लार्ज कॅव्हिटी इज फॉर्म्ड ॲट द माउथ रिजन, while During the rainy season, due to seepage or percolation of water, there is sudden shrinking of land mass, forming depression or cavity which gets filled with the seawater so as to form estuary. आता हा सगळ्यात बारबेल्ट दाखवण्यात आहे टेक्टॉनिक म्हणजे हा हा जो भाग आहे हा प्रोफाईल व्ह्यू मध्ये काय दाखवलंय की जिथं हे माउथ आहे आणि हे हा जो भाग आहे हा असा लँडफॉर्मच्या अर्थक्वेकमुळे हा काय झालेला आहे हा खचलेला आहे खाली गेलेला आहे आणि त्याच्यामध्ये काय होतं पाणी साठून राहते म्हणजे हा खचलेला भाग आहे असं इश्यू मग अशा प्रकारे जी निर्माण झालेली जी खाडी आहे दॅट इज कॉल्ड एज टेक्टॉनिक ही कोस्टल प्लेन आपण जी पाहिलेली ती ब्रॉन कोस्टल प्लेन ही जोड टाईप ऑफ इश्यू जिथं सिल्ट असं स्प्लिट असं तयार होतं. देन नेक्स्ट इज सॉल्ट बेज इश्युरीज आपल्याकडे आता हे वेलोर इश्युरीज विच आर प्रेझेंट इन द तामिळनाडू. Salt wedge estuary is formed when the river flow into tideless sea. वरती ओटीचा जिथं मंद आहे अशा ठिकाणी fresh water being less dense than the sea water will tend to flow over the surface of salt water naturally. The density which is again depending on the salinity. So seawater is much dense, so it is flowing below. The seawater rests on the bottom as motionless salt wedge. Salt wedge खालचा पट्टा खाऱ्या पाण्याचा खालचा पट्टा rests at the bottom. Hence the estuary is called as salt wedge estuary. म्हणजे हा हे फ्रेश वॉटर इकडून येते हे मरीन वॉटर इकडं आहे आणि हे हलकं असल्यामुळे लेस डेन्स असल्यामुळे हे असं वर इथं वाहतंय आणि हे खाली डेन्स असल्यामुळे हे खाली हा जो मधला हा जो पट्टा आहे हा जो इथला हा जो भाग आहे कोस्टल रिजनचा ही जी खाडी तयार झाली होती ते सॉल्ट वेज इश्युरी असं म्हटलं. The salt wedge occupies almost whole water depth near the mouth. Mouth कशाला म्हणलेलं आहे जिथं नदी समुद्राला मिळते दॅट इज द माउथ आणि तिथला जो बॉटमचा भाग आहे हा सगळा समुद्राच्या पाण्यानं ऑक्युपाय केलेला असतोय. इट विल टॅपर अँड थिन टुवर्ड्स द हेड ऑफ द इश्युरी कमी कमी होत जाणार. बिटवीन द अप्पर फ्रेश वॉटर अँड लोअर सी वॉटर there is a narrow zone called as halocline म्हणजे हा तो झोन हा तो पट्टा याला halocline म्हणतात. ओके this is called as halocline. In the halocline the salinity changes is sharp but halocline is stable. आता पहा the bottom sea water will be stationary but केव्हा त्याच्यामध्ये हालचाल होते बघा. द सरफेस वॉटर इज फ्लोईंग रॅपिडली. द बॉटम सी वॉटर विल बी स्टेशनरी बट द सरफेस वॉटर इज फ्लोईंग रॅपिडली. कॉन्सिक्वेंटली क्लोज टू द halocline देर विल बी अ वेलॉसिटी शीर. वेलॉसिटी शीर म्हणजे थोडंसं ह्याच्यामध्ये आपल्याला इथं दिसून येतं. सॉल्ट वेज आहे हे नदीकडून आलेलं पाणी आणि इथं या इथं असं हा दिस इज द वेलॉसिटी शेर म्हणजे थोडंसं डिस्टर्बन्स या दोन्ही पट्ट्यांच्या मध्ये म्हणजे हलकं पाणी आणि हे जड पाणी हे सॉल्ट वेज आणि हे फ्रेश वॉटरचं इथं हे वेलॉसिटी शेर. दिस कॉजेस वेव्स ऑन द इंटर सरफेस म्हणजे ह्या दोन्हीच्या हे सरफेसचा एक बॉटमचा ह्या इंटर सरफेसवर अशा बारीकशा अशा लहरी इथं तयार झालेल्या आपल्याला दिसतात. These waves can break injecting small amount of salt water into the more turbulent fresh water. This process is called as entrainment. म्हणजे मिक्सिंग होतं थोडंसं इथं मिक्सिंग होतं या पाण्याचं. दिस इज कॉल्ड एज entrainment. No fresh water is mixed into the bottom water. खालचं पाणी वर जाते पण वरचं पाणी खाली मिक्स होत नाही. Mixing is entirely upward. Thus, the bottom water has fairly constant salinity along its length, but loses gradually towards the surface water. This loss is made good the by a slow inflow of न्यू सॉल्ट वॉटर फ्रॉम द सी वॉटर. म्हणजे हा जो इकडून येणारा हा जो प्रवाह आहे हा प्रवाह हा ते कंटिन्युअस हे मॅच केलं जातं जरी इथं स्लाइटली वेलॉसिटी शेअरमुळे इथं मिक्सिंग होत असलं तरी. ह्या डायग्राम मध्ये सुद्धा हेच आहे. सॉल्ट वेज इकडं आहे, हे फ्रेश वॉटर, हे हॅलोक्लाइन, हे सॉल्ट वेज. इथं बघा हे टर्ब्युलन्स, हे हॅलोक्लाइन इथं आहे. थोडंसं वेव्ज इथं निर्माण झालेले आहेत दोन्हीच्या मध्ये हे दिसतात. हे आता बघा त्याच्यानुसार पुढे पार्शियली मिक्स्ड इश्युरीज आणि वेल मिक्स्ड इश्युरीज असे परत तिथं दोन भाग त्याच्यामध्ये या टर्ब्युलन्समध्ये दिसून येतात. Partially mixed estuaries is formed when the river flow into the sea with appreciable tidal movements. Tidal movement म्हणजे थोडंसं आता इथं घर्षण. The friction of the meeting place causes velocity shift. दोन्हीच म्हणजे नदीच्या पाण्याचा प्रवाह आणि समुद्राकडून येणारी भरतीचा प्रवाह याच्यामध्ये काय होतं थोडंसं फ्रिक्शन होते आणि वेलॉसिटी शेअर निर्माण होते विच जनरेट्स टर्ब्युलन्स, खळखळाट. द टर्ब्युलन्स कॉजेस मिक्सिंग ऑफ फ्रेश वॉटर अँड सी वॉटर. पार्शियली मिक्स्ड इश्यू इथं टर्ब्युलन्स निर्माण होतात. The turbulence causes more effective mixing than entrainment. म्हणजे इथं होणारं जे मिक्सिंग त्याच्यापेक्षा इथं होणारं मिक्सिंग हे रॅपिड आहे. कारण इथं रॅपिड कशामुळे तर कशाचा प्रभाव आहे तर बिकॉज ऑफ द टायडल इफेक्ट. ओके, बिकॉज ऑफ द टायडल इफेक्ट, टायडल मुवमेंट हा पॉइंट महत्वाचा आहे. The turbulence not only mixes salt water but also mixes the fresh water downward. फिरते सुद्धा किंवा या डायग्राम मध्ये सुद्धा काय असं पाणी हे फिरते. This dilutes the sea water near the head of the estuary. Okay. Now in the fresh layer there is still a residual discharge of water towards sea, but now it carries with it the increased amount of salt resulting from the enhanced mixing. म्हणजे आता इथं मिक्स झाल्यामुळे हे पाण्याचे मिक्सिंग झाल्यामुळे ते स्वतः त्या प्रवाहामध्ये ते मिक्स होतं. This salt has been replaced in the lower layer by compensating inflow from the sea. This inflow from the sea is much larger magnitude. This inflow from the sea is of much larger magnitude than that of the wedge salt estuary. The enhanced residual flow cause the density differences and mixing is called vertical gravitational circulation. Vertical gravitational म्हणजे असं उभं मिक्सिंग या ह्याच्यामध्ये पाण्यामध्ये होत असते. Okay. And the last type is well mixed estuaries. आता दोन्हीच्या मध्ये फरक. Well mixed estuaries are shallow. किनारपट्टी त्याची रुंद असते, शॅलो असते, खोलगट भाग नसतो. विथ हाय टायडल रेंज, हा महत्वाचा भाग आहे. And probably with intertidal mudflats and banks. Mixing is more intense. म्हणून त्याला वेल मिक्स्ड म्हणलेलं आहे. बिकॉज ऑफ द शॅलोनेस, उथळ पाणी आहे म्हणून, द व्हर्टिकल सर्क्युलेशन कॅनॉट टेक्स प्लेस. म्हणजे कडेकडेने पाणी, कडेला पाणी काय होतं, कसं होतं बघा. देर इज अ लॅटरल व्हेरिएशन इन द सॅलिड. उथळ पाणी असल्यामुळे डेप्थ, इथं डेप्थचा प्रश्न येतच नाही. उथळ पाणी असल्यामुळे पाण्याला पसरण्यासाठी भरपूर जागा आहे. त्यामुळे नदीचा प्रवाह आणि टायडल इफेक्ट, पाणी लॅटरली जास्त पसरलं जातं. द फ्रेश वॉटर टेंड्स टू फ्लो डाऊन one side of the estuary and the saltier water enters the other side. हा उथळ पाण्याचा भाग असल्यामुळे पाणी फिरणं म्हणतो ना आपण, पाणी एका बाजूनं फ्रेश वॉटर, पाणी इकडे येणं आणि हे एका बाजूने पाणी परत समुद्राचं पाणी इकडं भरती असल्यामुळे हे असं उथळ पाण्यामध्ये असं त्यांचं एका बाजूने इकडून एंट्री होते फ्रेश वॉटरची, एका बाजूने सॉल्ट वॉटरची एंट्री होते आणि मग त्या पाण्याचं बऱ्यापैकी हॉरिझॉन्टल रेसिड्युअल सर्क्युलेशन. इथं जसं हे मध्य भागामध्ये इथं व्हर्टिकल, जिथं शब्द वापरला आपण इथं व्हर्टिकल ग्रॅव्हिटेशनल सर्क्युलेशन, तर इथे शब्द काय वापरला बघा, हॉरिझॉन्टल रेसिड्युअल सर्क्युलेशन इज एस्टॅब्लिश्ड. And sometimes the ebb dominated, ebb म्हणजे ओहोटीचा भाग. Sometimes the ebb dominated and the flood dominated part of circulation can be separated into topographically distinct ebb and flood channels with the bank in between. So त्या उथळ पाण्याच्या म्हणजे जिथं उथळ नदीचा प्रवाह, खाडीचा जो भाग आहे तो पूर्ण असा उथळ आहे त्या रिजनमध्ये, बिकॉज ऑफ द वाईड माउथ ऑफ द रिव्हर, shallowness, the water, even though the sea water is dense, density is more, the water of the sea water is coming in the estuary from one side and the water, fresh water is coming from the other side, and thus the circulation occurs horizontally, this mixing occurs horizontally in this time. So the mixing of these two waters takes place well. So the estuary is called as well mixed estuaries. Okay. So we'll stop here. If you have any questions, you may ask. Otherwise, we will stop. काय थांबायचं का? हॅलो हॅलो, थांबूया का?
हो सर.
Okay, I will stop sharing now.